Rogue Legacy has been tagged as a very Castlevania-like game by many players, myself included, and even though I will undoubtedly make comparisons to Castlevania, this game is no mere copycat of it. Rogue Legacy has a pretty bare minimum story. Basically, you need to conquer the Castle Hamson, and that is pretty much it. You will find various journal entries along the way to kind of flesh out the story of the original adventurer, but for the most part, the story wasn't a huge focus on this game. And that's okay. Like many other platformers, the solid gameplay makes up for the lacking story. The gameplay mainly consists of going around killing minions and searching rooms for loot. There are 4 main areas in the game: Castle Hamson, Forest of Kazia, the Maya, and the Land of Darkness. These main areas will generally stay in the same place. From the castle start point, the Maya is above, the forest is to the right, and the Land of Darkness is down below. Each main area has a boss that you must defeat. By killing these bosses, you open seals for the final boss behind the door in the very first room of the castle. The neat thing is that you don't really have to kill them in any particular order, but you will likely do so because of the difficulty spikes in each area. The enemies in each area will differ in strength. From weakest to strongest, it goes Castle, Forest, Maya, and the Land of Darkness. These difficulty spikes will generally make you avoid the area early on, since you will get wrecked by normal minions with ease. However, if you are crafty, skilled, and brave enough, they can benefit you greatly because they give higher reward money and better blueprints for your items. If you think you'll be so good at the game that you won't die, think again. I made that same mistake, and after a few hours, I had a cemetery full of my kin. This game is much too hard for any inexperienced players to just run through easy peasy. Expect to die a lot your first run through. Speaking of treasure and death, when you die, the character you're playing is permanently dead. So, how do you continue? Well, by using the Children of the Fallen. You will have 3 children to choose from with each new generation. Their classes and traits will differ though. More on those later. The characters aren't the only things that change. The sections of each area will also change randomly. So you can't just memorize the areas and get all the loot again and again and again. However, you can pay the architect a portion of your potential earnings and he will lock down the castle for you and keep it the same as the previous run. Since you will get a new character with a preset class every time you die, you will want to get familiar with all of them. There are 9 unique classes in the game. Each has a different stats as well as their own special ability. They are Knight, Mage, Barbarian, Knave, Shinobi, Miner, Lich, Spell Thief, and Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. Okay, so maybe not Crouching Tiger part, but there is a Sacred Dragon class. The classes don't get their ability until you have upgraded them, with the exception of the Dragon class. Knights turn into Paladins and gain a shield ability that allows you to block incoming damage. They also have the ability to turn into a statue just like the Tanuki suit in Super Mario Bros. 3. This will actually do damage to your enemies as well. These guys just have baseline stats, so these are your benchmarks for every other class. Mages become Archmages, granting them the ability to swap between 3 random spells. As you may have guessed, they have high intellect and MP, but low strength and health. The real bummer about this class is that they can't regenerate MP very fast. The only way they can get any consistent stream of MP is by killing enemies. The Archmage gets 6 MP per kill. You can stack Siphon runes to boost that number, but unless you sacrifice movement runes and vampiric runes, you'll still be on the shallow end of the mana pool because of the high cost of certain spells. It is a real disappointing class to me, because I usually like to play mages and being a class canon. Most of my runs would devolve into trying to kill enemies with the sword after a few minutes in, and no way to cast a spell for several rooms. Also, you can't really carry health or MP potions. You may find the odd potion or chicken leg from destroying the environment, but they are very infrequent, so popping potions is out of the equation as well. While I'm on the subject of mages, I want to go over the spells really quick. There are 11 spells in total. They are Dagger, Axe, Chakram, Flame Barrier, Blade Wall, Scythe, Conflux Orbs, Time Stop, Quantum Translocator, Crowstorm, and Dragonfire. These spells are a lot like Castlevania sub-weapons, and they are usually used as a supplement attack alongside of your melee attacks. The Dagger and Axe act just like their same name sub-weapons do in Castlevania. The Chakram is a lot like Kirby's Cutter ability, but much slower. You throw it, and it goes a few yards, then comes back. You can catch it, or you can dodge it and let it fly all the way across the room. The Flame Berry creates a circle of fireballs that hurt enemies within range. This particular spell costs MP per second, so it'll drain your mana pool really quickly. The Blade Wall has a very misleading name, as it doesn't block anything at all, it only harms anything that decide to touch it. The Scythe spell throws a couple of scythe blades on an angle in the general direction you are facing. The Conflux orbs are kinda interesting. 4 spiked balls come out of the character and bounce all over the room, hurting anything they touch. Be careful though, if you use it near a doorway, they will leave the room, and it will be a waste of precious MP. Time Stop is a mage only spell that stops enemies and projectiles as long as you are able to sustain the MP cost per second. The Quantum Translocator leaves a shadow that you can teleport to when you cast it a second time. It is very useful in huge spiked rooms where you have to go back the way you came. Crowstorm is a lich only spell that creates crows that home in on every enemy in the room. This spell is really nice to use in later levels when your intelligence is high enough to kill most enemies in one hit. It even goes through walls. This spell costs a lot of MP, but is worth it when you have a lot of enemies in the room. Dragonfire is a short-range fireball that the dragon class uses as his only attack. Dragons are a pretty quirky class. They are the only class that can fly indefinitely. They have low health, MP, and baseline intelligence. Strength is not a factor since they can only cast the one spell. They aren't particularly strong at attack or defense, but are highly mobile, and most useful for getting special condition fairy chests that hold blueprints and runes. They are also the only class that can regenerate MP. When barbarians upgrade, they become kings or queens based on their gender. They get the ability to shout and knock back enemies and destroy projectiles. This class has the highest amount of health among all the classes. They have a lowered strength, which means they don't really hit that hard. But they can soak up a lot of attacks, which is a very useful stat in this game, where healing is sparse. And since chicken legs heal you based off of max health, they get the most benefit from the poultry delicacy. Knaves turn into assassins and gain the ability to cloak. Cloaking makes the character invisible to enemies for a set MP per second. It sounds way cooler than it is. Sometimes, if you have certain traits, it doesn't even work at all. They are the only class that get an increased critical chance as well as increased critical hit damage. They have low health though, so they can be very fragile. You can buff your base crit chance stat and really make them live up to the name of Assassin. They will eventually have such a high critical hit chance that they will crit more often than doing normal attacks, and you can raise your critical hit damage as well, making them even more deadly. The Shinobi is probably my favorite class. They have the highest strength stat among all the classes, so they can dispatch a good portion of enemies very quickly. They also get a neat speed boost which makes dodging a lot easier. When they become Hokage, they get the ability to swift dash, which is really useful to dodge midair. They also have one caveat though. They lack the ability to crit at all. So, any of the stat boosts that you put in to help out the assassin will be wasted on this class. Believe it, I was able to say Hokage without making a Naruto reference. Yes! You didn't hear that last sentence. If you say you did, I'll have to use a Rasengan to silence you. Miners are weak and feeble. Their main draw is that they gain 30% more money from everything. Even though they are weak, they can make bank in a short amount of time, especially if you upgrade them to Spelunkers, and gain the ability to see all of the chests on the map. Liches have the unique ability to gain max health when you kill enemies. It tops out with a max that rivals the Barbarian. When you upgrade them to Kings and Queens, they gain the ability to take their max health and put it towards max MP. When you make this swap, you gain MP based on whatever you transferred over. The rate you gain is fairly slow though. At really late levels, it can take you whole sections just to reach the max, and since you have no good way of healing, you probably won't get to utilize the newfound max health. They have really high intelligence, so their spellcasting strength is pretty much unrivaled, even when compared to the Archmage. Spell Thieves are what mages should be like if MP regeneration was too overpowered. They have the ability to gain MP on hit, so you can cast spells a lot more often. When upgraded to the Spell Sword, they can make their spells twice as big with twice the cost. It saddens me that a class who is normally the jack of all trades becomes better than the aces of the very trades that they mimic. I guess the Spell Sword is kind of like the Bowers of the card game Euchre. Traits are interesting in this game. There are 22 in total, but this review has become a bit too list heavy, so I'll only name a few noteworthy ones and move on. The first one that comes to mind is Dwarfism. This trait makes your character very small. It is especially useful because there are certain areas in which dwarves are the only ones that can enter, giving them access to more loot as well as secret passages to avoid enemies. It also gives your swing a much more limited range as well, so it makes it harder to hit enemies too, so there's a little bit of a caveat to it. The one trait changes the loading screen to say jacking in, and also makes the terrain Neon Tron style. It is pretty trippy and kinda nice to see a change up to the castle every once in a while. There are some other fascinating ones that mess with the visuals, like colorblindness makes it black and white, nostalgic makes it a sepia tone, nearsighted makes the screen blurry far away from the character, and farsighted makes it blurry around the character. Not every trait is fun and cuddly like teddy bears though. Vertigo is one to be avoided at all costs. It basically flips the whole game upside down, making your controls inverted, which makes the already hard game harder. It is basically an early death sentence to the character. Dementia is also pretty bad, but it is actually really cool in my opinion. It makes you see enemies that aren't there, so you can waste MP trying to hit illusions. You will also find yourself trying to dodge these illusions and hitting actual enemies instead. I feel like the adventurer is going a little crazy in the castle, and you as a player start to feel it when you start to question which enemies are real and which enemies are illusions. Those are the only traits I really wanted to go over. You will discover a lot more while playing the game. In case you were wondering what happens to all the treasure you found, the children inherit all the money you accumulated in the past run. You can use this money to buy new classes, stat upgrades, equipment from blueprints you found, and runes. All of these items you purchase are permanent. However, the more items you purchase, the more expensive other items get. For example, if MP boost costs 1,000 gold, and health boost also costs 1,000, and you buy a health boost, the MP boost will go up in cost as well. I personally don't like this concept in the game. It makes really expensive upgrades like a new class much more expensive as you try to upgrade your character just so you can last a little bit longer. I feel like it should only increase the cost for the attribute you are leveling up only. Another thing I don't like about this upgrading system is that upgrades are hidden until you can actually put points into them. This can lead you to follow a path that is much harder simply because you didn't know what you could put your money towards. For instance, if I had gone right in pursuit of the miner, it would take me much longer to get the coveted shinobi, who I found out a few runs later. Which brings me to another point. The gold seeking in this game can be really cumbersome. Any money that you have not spent on upgrades, equipment, and runes will be taken away by the demon Sharon. If you had made a good amount of money, like $5,000, and class costs like $5,050, you'll have to spend that money on other upgrades, making it even tougher to get on the next run. There are 5 different slots for your equipment. You have a sword which increases your attack, and 4 armor pieces. The armor mainly boosts your defense to decrease your damage taken, as well as boosts various stats. There are multiple sets of equipment you can find throughout the game, each with their own motif. For instance, the blood set increases your vampirism but lowers your health, and the quest armor increases your amount of gold that you get, like the miner ability, but weakens you. You gotta be careful because you can only carry so much weight, and the better pieces are very heavy, so you'll need to upgrade the weight stat a lot before you can use some of the more beastly attire. On your travels, you will find various runes in the game. You will need to unlock them from the Enchantress. Runes give boosts to various stats and give you special abilities. You equip 1 rune per equipment slot. The most notable runes are Siphon, Vampiric, Balance, Dash, Flight, and Double Jump. The Siphon, Vampiric, and Balance runes are very necessary to have for long runs. It is basically the only way you can heal your character on a regular basis. Siphon gives you 2 MP, Vampiric gives you 2 health, and Balance gives you 1 MP and 1 health for each enemy you kill. Dash gives you the ability to dash left or right quickly, which is really useful for dodging, but can also help you get some special fairy chests that don't allow you to look at the chest before touching it. Flight gives you the ability to fly for a short period of time, and Double Jump allows you to jump again while in midair. As mentioned previously, you are able to stack abilities on top of one another. It is not just the Siphon-like ones, but also the movement ones as well. You can stack Flight to make your fly time longer, and you can stack Double Jump just so you can jump a lot more. So it's more like a triple jump or a quadruple jump whenever you stack more than just one. There are also shrines that you can find in the game that give you various items, like the Charon Orb, Calypso's Compass, and the Hedgehog Curse, to name a few. The Charon Orb acts as a free token to pay the toll to enter the castle again, which is really useful when you want to go for a really expensive item. Calypso's compass brings a mini compass that points you to an invisible room that has rare treasure in it. The Hedgehog curse pops out coins whenever you are hit, and you have the ability to regain them just like in Sonic the Hedgehog. The look of Rogue Legacy is deceptively old school. While it looks like it could be played on a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis, it is actually really graphically sharp and vibrant, as illustrated by the contrast and fidelity when you have the nearsighted or farsighted traits active. They really like to use a lot of colors in this game, although I must say they did kinda go overboard with the palette swapping of enemies. This game features multiple New Game Plus modes, making it even more difficult with each new tier. So even after you've beaten the game, you can try your hand at a much harder difficulty of the game. The New Game Plus is also the only way to get the best gear in the game. Rogue Legacy receives an 8 out of 10. While the story is lackluster, the game is well worth the time of any seasoned adventurer. With its wealth of content and engaging gameplay, you can definitely find yourself trying to conquer the castle for hours without even realizing it. You will just end up saying, "One more run, then I am done," over and over, until that one run has been 20 runs. The random mechanics also lend it to have a really high replay value, so you can have a new adventure every time. The final verdict of Rogue Legacy is to buy it when you can. It will be well worth your time. If you happen to have a PS3, PS4, and Vita, I recommend getting it for those platforms since it features a cross-buy and cross-save functionality between the systems, so you can play the same save file on all three systems. The gameplay is also very well suited for short bursts on the go. Hey, if you liked the video and want to see more like it in the future, please hit subscribe. It is much appreciated. I also run a site called thegameslayers.com where we seek to build a community of other like-minded gamers. You can do all kinds of stuff on the site, like post your own content, create groups, hold group events, make friends, and more. And if you post some stellar content, we will be happy to show the community our support by putting it on the front page for everybody to see.